Hardy, please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you. Please stand and put your hand over your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And I would just remind everyone, if you come up to speak, speak loud into the microphone so the folks at home can hear you. First item on the agenda is the consent agenda. All items listed hereunder are considered to be routine by the town council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be discussed separately. Item 1, approval of the January 6th, 2026 Town Council regular meeting minutes. Item 2, approval of the check register report, January 2026. Approval of item 3, approval of the combined trial balance, November 30th, 2025. And item 4, the all Porsche Grand Display Car Show road closure, March 1st, 2026 through 5:30 p.m. until 3 o'clock p.m. And I would like to pull item number 4. Would anyone like to pull items 1, 2, or 3? So having none, I would entertain a motion to approve consent agenda items 1, 2, and 3.
I move to accept agenda items 1, 2, and 3.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimously. Okay, item number 4. So we have, is Bill Stubbs here or Dennis Rude? Okay, so they're from the Porsche Car Show. I thought one of them might be here this evening. And I think the most important thing to note is that the show hours are 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. So it wasn't published in the package. And they've been here 3 or 4 years. It's a nice program. Doesn't have maybe the variety that the Oddball Car Show had. But if you're a Porsche person, it's really pretty cool. So come on out. Okay, so now I would ask for a motion to approve item number 4.
Motion to approve item number 4.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, passed unanimously. Thank you. So current events, agenda item number 5. So at the last meeting, we talked about Gary Neese announcing his retirement and about the recruitment process. So council members Johnson and Colleen Rose-Skirty have been working with me and MAG HR to recruit our next town administrator. And they posted it in several places. They got a very healthy response. They helped vet the response that we got. Colleen and Lons have sat down with me. We vetted those. We've conducted interviews of the qualified candidates. And so the next step is final interviews for those who are still under consideration. And those final interviews will be conducted next week. So if all goes well, we should have identified a candidate next week. And that's per the schedule that we announced when we embarked upon this. That's good to hear. So we have next item up is we have an election coming up. So we have 3 council positions, and the mayor position are up for election or re-election. The key thing there is to note that the state legislature is looking at reviewing the dates for the primary election itself. So originally it was the first week of July, now it may be in July. And that impacts when the nomination petitions are due. So the League of Cities and Towns tell us that this will be sorted out by Friday, the 13th of February. So if you're interested, go to our website. As soon as we know what's going on, we'll post it there. And if you're interested in running, you can pick up a packet in Town Hall. Just set an appointment with the town clerk, and she'll take care of you. Next up, community conversations. So Friday, February 13th, 9 to 11, council members Colleen Rose-Skirty and Clint Miller will join me in the pavilion during the farmers market. So we'd like to see you come on out. It's beautiful out there. A lot of energy, a lot of people. So we've been talking about updating our zoning code, right? So it's on the agenda tonight. And part of that effort is to create what's called a zoning ordinance advisory group. So what we're doing is we're soliciting volunteers to participate in that. So residents, business owners, property owners with professional, technical, or practical experience in planning, zoning, architecture, engineering, real estate, construction, sustainability, legal practice, business development are encouraged to apply. And so while zoning experience is not required, the meaningful experience or familiarity with land use and development is really important. So this is a kind of like a technical advisory group. So about between 5 and 7 members will be appointed, and then applications are accepted until February 25th. And we'll talk more about this tonight when that agenda item comes up. We have another gardens seminar series on February 21st, 9:30 here in the Town Council chambers. And this one's about planting the right plant in the right place. So more often than not, if you're like me, you plant the wrong plant in the wrong place. And we have people here who are going to help you out. And so we started this current event agenda item talking about Gary Neese, and we're going to close talking about Gary Neese. So Gary's been our town administrator for 24 years, and by my math, he has attended 288 town council meetings, which is a record which will probably never be broken, and probably that alone gets him into the Town Administrator Hall of Fame. And on top of that, he's done great work for us. You've been fantastic, and we'll miss you. So thank you. So anyway. Okay. And that wraps up current events. Anyone else have anything? Oops. Okay. Agenda item number 6, approval of resolution 2026-01, update to CFO designation for FY 2025. Kristen Cray.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This item for Resolution 2601 is to update a resolution that you enacted on October 1st, 2024. Each year, we have to submit the annual expenditure limitation report to the Auditor General's office. In order to do that, you must designate a CFO. The CFO that was designated to submit the fiscal year 2025 annual expenditure limitation report was your prior clerk. So therefore, we need to correct that with the resolution to have your current clerk, myself, submit the annual expenditure limitation report on your behalf for FY 2025. Going forward, we had, in May of this past year, done a resolution for me to submit for our FY 26. So we're fine for the coming audit, but this current one, we need to make this change. In order for me to submit that, I must attach a resolution identifying the clerk as the submittal in my name.
Okay, sounds pretty straightforward. Are there any questions from the council? Okay, hearing none. Good explanation, thank you. So I would accept a motion to approve resolution 2026-01. So this is a resolution of the mayor and the common council of the town of Carefree, Arizona, designating the town clerk treasurer as the chief financial officer to submit the fiscal year annual expenditure limitation report for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2025.
Motion to approve Resolution 2026-01, a resolution of the Mayor and Common Council of the Town of Carefree, Arizona, designating the town clerk treasurer as the chief financial officer to submit the fiscal year annual expenditure limitation report for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2025.
Second.
Okay, we have a second. Before we vote, any comments, questions? Okay, hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. Agenda item number 7. Approve resolution 2026-02, accepting the findings of the 2024-25 2025 fiscal year audit and approval of the fiscal year 2025 annual expenditure limitation report. Kristen Cray as our treasurer.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. I think I'm going to do some housekeeping on this first, so you know what you have in front of you. You all received in your agenda packets the same items. So you have your resolution itself is in your packet. We've had to make a minor change to that resolution, which is just a date change. You will note that in the resolution attached in your package, it has fiscal year ending June 30th, 2024 in the whereas paragraph number 3. That has been changed to fiscal year June 30th, 2025. So that's a technical error. You'll also find that you have your annual expenditure limitation report. What you received in your package, it's stamped draft for discussion only. You have the actual final in front of you. None of the numbers or the content has changed. The only thing that has changed is that my signature was added, which is required for us to complete and submit the AELR. I had to provide a wet signature on the document. So in addition to that, you have our audit, the Town of Carefree, for fiscal year 2025, our HERF report for 2025. You have the Carefree Cave Creek Consolidated Court Audit for fiscal year 2025. That was included in your agenda packet. And then what's called the governance communication from our auditors for the town. So those are the documents that you received in the packet and the updated documents you're now aware of. So just a general statement on why we do audits. It's very important for us to assure that our financial statements are free from material misstatements and that we verify that we're using the appropriate accounting principles and practices that are through what's considered GAAP accounting. In addition to that, we confirm our compliance with the Governmental Accounting Standards Board requirements. That's called the GASB. And we do this to guard against fraud and misuse of our funds. In addition to that, this provides us with that additional level of transparency for our residents. Tonight, you have Ms. Lupita Martinez from Clifton Larson Allen presenting our audit, and she will go through the details with you. She will also present briefly the Carefree Cave Creek Consolidated Court audit as well. And before we roll into that, I'm pleased to announce that we've had a clean audit. In addition to that, Clifton Larson Allen, it's their first year with us. I will say that they provided a very deep dive, which was very reassuring going forward. They'll be our auditors for the next 4 cycles, and we've begun a great working relationship with them. In addition to that, I want to thank Jim Keene, who is also here in the audience if we have any questions tonight, for his hard work each year on our annual audit. We spend on average anywhere from 4 to 6 months on the annual audit. This time it was 6 months because we had a new auditor. So we literally finished 2 weeks ago. He was very dedicated to this process, of course, on top of doing his regular duties. I also want to thank Debbie Domenico. A lot of our audits are about pulling all these documents. So Debbie was instrumental in assisting us with the building safety part that we had to check and a number of the receipts, and she spent quite a few days doing all that with Jim. And for the court, Andy and Donette and our judge were very helpful and receptive to the auditors. They completed that audit in record time, so congratulations to them. And I believe that ends my presentation. I will ask the judge and the court staff are present in the room as well. Okay. And I'll ask Ms. Lupita Martinez to come up and do our presentation.
Okay, well, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor Crane and members of council. My name is Lupita Martinez. I am a principal with Clifton Larson Allen, and today I am here to present the audit results for the town of Carefree for the fiscal year ended June 30, 25. So what is an audit? Well, we examine and verify management's assertions over the financial numbers, and we provide an opinion as to whether those numbers are free of material misstatement or fraud. An audit includes findings and recommendations. When we start and plan the audit, we look at auditor's risk, which is material balances, balances that are subject to fraud, for example, usually revenues, and we formulate a plan to conduct the audit. Auditors are independent and they work for governance, which is town council, and the results then come to the council. As Kristen mentioned, in your reporting package, you have communication to governance. You have your annual financial report that includes our audit opinion. You have a Yellow Book audit report, which is an audit conducted in accordance with government auditing standards. You have the HERF examination report, that's the Highway User Revenue Fund. You have your expenditure limitation report, and not listed, you also have your court triannual agreed upon procedures report. So in our letter to governance, we do have items that we are required by our professional standards to communicate with you. The first is the adoption of any new accounting principles or policies. There were two GASBs, which is Government Accounting Standards Board's accounting principles that were adopted by the town. The first has to do with compensated absences, which is sick and vacation time accounting. The adoption of this standard had no material impact on the numbers. The second GASB that was adopted was GASB 102, which has to do with certain risk disclosures that the town may face. Anytime there's a government that faces either a concentration of some kind of new vendor coming into town, or a concentration of investments, or the opposite, a vendor or material supplier leaving, or something that causes the town risk, there is a requirement that a full disclosure be added to the financial report. And in this case, during FY25, there was no impact because you had no such events occurring. There were no significant unusual transactions that we found. There were no difficulties encountered in performing the audit. We had no disagreements with management over accounting principles or audit procedures. We did find one error in the prior year's accounting records, and that had to do with how the accounting was conducted for the purchase of water fund assets in the amount of $1.9 million. The gain, or so to speak, went to unavailable revenue, which is a liability, and we believe the accounting guidance should have been recorded as fund balance, non-spendable fund balance. So that error was corrected, and that is in our audit opinion. With regard to accounting estimates, there are no significant accounting estimates made by management in the financial statements. We have what's called uncorrected misstatements. These are items that are not considered material, but we are allowing management time to record those and adjust the accounts in the following year. The first two have to do with UCFD. They did not properly record bond premium amortization in the amount of $144,000. There was a lease, a Verizon land lease, that was not recorded for $185,000. For the town, there's what's called other post-employment benefit asset. That was not recorded for $59,000. And then there was a reconciling balance of $18,000 to properly state utility capital improvement accounts receivable. So those items will be adjusted in the following year, and again are not considered material to the financial statements that you have. The components of the annual financial report, again, you have our audit opinion. That was considered a clean opinion, in that there were no material misstatements or fraud. There are also what's called combining financial statements and schedules in the back, and that's considered to be supplementary information. It kind of gives you a feel for how the numbers come together and all the funds that Jim and Kristen account for. You can see the details, and those schedules and financial statements, we give what's called an in relation to opinion. You do have assurance, our assurance that we did look at those numbers, and they are clean and unmodified in relation to the financial statements as a whole. With regard to the supplementary information, which consists of management's discussion and analysis, the pension schedules, and the budget to actual schedules, you receive what's called a disclaimer of opinion, and that means that we do read the information, we make sure it's consistent, we tie out the numbers, but we don't actually perform any audit over those numbers. We do want to report that the Highway User Revenue Fund had no compliance findings. Our audit approach is by statute. We are required to perform agreed upon procedures according to Arizona Revised Statutes Title 28, Chapter 18, Article 2. We select a sample of your disbursements and your payroll to make sure they were in compliance, and again, there were no instances of non-compliance found. With regard to the annual expenditure limitation report, the voters did approve a limitation of expenditures of $12,856,267. The amount subject to limitation was $10,495,812, and the town was well within the expenditure limitation. Any questions before I go in with the numbers? So this is the town's governmental activities. It's called the Statement of Net Position, which is synonymous with the balance sheet. In governmental accounting, they've made it so that you could take any government and compare it to a commercial business. I think the bankers kind of made this thing happen, but it makes sense. You all are borrowing money. Y'all are borrowing money, and your financial statements need to look like any other business. And so this is your balance sheet. The total assets are, I wonder why it's doing that. Okay. Can the audience see it? Okay. Your total assets are what you own. Your total liabilities are what you owe, and your net position is your net worth. As of June 30, 2025, the town has $38.6 million in assets, $2 million in liabilities, and a net worth of $36.6 million. Again, when you look at your net position, not all of it is liquid. And so of the $36.5 million in net worth, you have $16.1 million invested in capital, such as your buildings, your infrastructure, your parks. Unrestricted then is $19.9 million. Those are the funds that you can do what the town or the citizens want to do with it. And then you do have restricted balance of $547,000. And those are third-party external restrictions. Your revenue and expenses, in 2025, you had $11.7 million of revenue. You had expenditures of $7.2 million for net income or a change in net position of $4.5 million. You can see that the revenue is steadily increasing. In 2022, it was $9.5 million, and it's now $11.7. And expenditures are trending downward as well, so that was a good year. For your business type activities, this is your water fund. You had total assets of $28.2 million, total liabilities of $21.7 million, and total net position or net worth of $6.5 million. Your components of net position, 3.2 million are in the water network, which is capital assets. And you have unrestricted net position of 3.3 million. The water company had $5 million in revenue, 5.2 million in expenditures, for a net loss of $281,000. So the next set of numbers is fund financial statements, and that is different in that it's modified accrual. So what that means is, you know how the other statements are, you know, comparable to commercial enterprises? That's full accrual. Modified accrual for governments is a picture of what you can do. It's like a checkbook. It's all of your resources are current resources. So that's why governments have two sets of financials, as if accounting wasn't hard enough, right? You have, this is just a current picture in each fund of your assets, your liabilities. It does not have any long-term assets, does not have any long-term liabilities. It's just a quick picture that's meant to mirror your budget, if that makes sense. Okay. In the general fund, total assets, 21.8 million. Total liabilities, 152,000. For total fund balance or net worth in the general fund, 21.7 million. Again, fund balance has restrictions. You have restricted $66,000, third-party restrictions. The council has committed $60,000. Non-spendable is 3.7 million, and that's the amount that you advance to the water fund. It's a receivable, and it's not spendable because you're not going to get that money right away, so it's considered longer term. And then unassigned general fund balance is 17.8 million. That's the amount that it's free and clear. For a total fund balance, 21.7 million. For general fund revenues and expenditures, you have 11.4 million in revenue, 10.4 in expenditures, for a change of fund balance of close to $1 million. In the highway user fund, you spent $287,000, you have assets of $287,000, which is your fund balance, no liabilities. Highway user fund components of fund balance, that's all restricted for streets and maintenance. Revenues in the fund balance is 300,000, expenditures 93,000, change in fund balance or net income in HERF 206,000. For your non-major funds, that includes other revenues such as grants and donations. Total assets 193,000. No liabilities. Total fund balance 193,000. Of that non-major fund, it is all restricted, meaning restricted by third parties. For the non-major fund, you had 69,000 in revenue and no expenditures. And that concludes my presentation. Again, here is my information, my email address, and my phone number. If you have any other questions, please feel free to reach out. We wanted to thank Kristen and Jim, and thank you for having me today.
Oh, thank you. I do have one question for you.
Mhm.
It kind of goes back to this, it's in the package, it's called Note 15, where we did not properly record the sale of capital assets to the water company.
Mhm.
So it's a number, 1.9 million. So is that just an accounting error, or is it going to appear in our monthly trial balance somehow, or maybe this is a good question for Jim. Is this something that has an impact to us, or is this?
Well, originally, the auditor suggested that we book it the way we did, but that's been 15 years ago when we gave property over to the water company, and then we made them pay for it, and then they started paying us for it. But the fact that we didn't get paid for it yet, it shouldn't have been categorized that way, because we didn't get the money until later. I mean, it's still money that we're gonna get, but it needed to be classified differently. And the GASB rules have changed on how you can, show that. And so now that's the way it needs to be showed, so we need to address it that way. And the trial balance will look different because of that too. And it's in those rows where you see $2 million advances to the water company. Well, some of that's gonna change a little, so.
Okay, so it's not reflected in the monthly trial balance that we have in this package today, but in the
Right,
future
but it's
it will
going to-
change.
Yeah,
Okay, great, thank you.
it'll have to be.
Any other questions from the council?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. On page 5, you have capital expenditures included. And you included 2 for the water company. Shouldn't they have been on the water company audit?
So to answer your question, the town does own the water company.
No, I know that. Yeah.
Okay, and so those numbers are rolled into the MD&A here, and so that is why it's shown that way. But I'm sorry, you said page 5?
Yeah.
If I may.
Okay, of course.
Mayor, thank you. Councilmember Roth, you are correct in identifying that they're in the same column per se as our town projects. We originally thought about splitting them out and making 2 different sections, but for the management discussion and analysis year, we allowed for the UCFD to be included in the management decision and analysis. So the auditors provided us with one overall management decision and analysis that included both the town and the UCFD. So that's why you may see some of the UCFD or water built in here. It's not a crossover of the budget or the use of the funds in any manner. It's also, I believe, indicated in the UCFD packet as well. You'll see those same figures.
Another thing, as you mentioned, we own the water company, but their liabilities that you listed at 25 million aren't listed against our balance sheet. That's a liability for us.
I think, Mayor, Councilmember, the CFD is a separate entity. That's why you're a separate board. So any debt incurred by the CFD is owed by the CFD. I don't think the town's done anything to guarantee that debt.
No, no.
I mean, I wasn't here when it was created, but
No.
the CFD is a standalone entity.
We're not responsible in any way for that debt.
Typically on CFDs, no.
So if they go belly up, they would be.
And Councilmember Roth, Mayor, council members, yeah. So this statement that we own the water company is not accurate, right? UCFD is the actual entity that owns the water company. And in your role right now, you are the town council. In our previous meeting, you were the UCFD.
Mayor?
Anything, go ahead.
Members of
Thank you.
council, I will, what Kristen said is very accurate. For accounting purposes, though, you do show the water company and the UCFD as a business-type activity of the town because there's accounting guidelines that are different from legal guidelines. But the accounting guidelines do say if something or an entity exists to serve the government, then it's included in your financial report. So that's I apologize for the misstatement, but yes, that's why it's included here.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? So hearing none, so first, thank you very much for all your good hard work.
Thank you.
And Jim Keane and Kristen and everyone else who had a hand in this. And I know you put in a lot of long hours because I saw your car out here on weekends. And it's very much appreciated, so thank you.
Thank you very much.
So now our job is to approve this resolution that's associated with this. And before we do that, I just want to make sure I understand the correction. So in the resolution that's in our packet, the third whereas has a correction to the year.
That is correct.
So it should be July 1st, 2025?
It would be, it is where it says finance, it's the third sentence where it begins with, you see the Carefree/Cave Creek Consolidated Course Finances and Financial Practices. For the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2024, that correction is to 2025, and I have the current updated resolution in front of me for our attorney to sign.
Okay, good, thank you. Just want to make sure we get it right.
Yes.
Okay, so I would entertain a motion to approve Resolution 2026-02, a resolution of the mayor and common council of the town of Carefree, Maricopa County, Arizona, accepting the findings of the fiscal year 2024-25 annual audit for the town of Carefree, Arizona, and the Carefree Cave Creek Consolidated Court, and the annual expenditure limitation report for the town of Carefree, Arizona, for the year ending June 30th, 2025, with that one correction in the year shown in the third paragraph in the whereas section.
I make a motion to approve Resolution 2026-02, a resolution of the mayor and common council of the town of Carefree, Maricopa County, Arizona, accepting the findings of the fiscal year 2024-2025 annual audit for the town of Carefree, Arizona, and the Carefree Cave Creek Consolidated Court, and the annual expenditure limitation report for the town of Carefree, Arizona for the year ending June 30th, 2025, with the noted change to the date in paragraph 3.
Second.
Okay, before we vote, any comments? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, thank you, Lupita. Well done. Okay, item number 8. Discussion and possible action to accept the public participation plan for the town of Carefree zoning code update as presented by Matt Klizico of Michael Baker International. Matt, welcome. Good to see you again.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. It's good to be back before you to talk about the next initiative that the town is taking on in terms of updating your zoning code. What I'll be presenting tonight is the public participation plan associated with that effort. I just progressed. Yeah, okay. Because we are having some technical difficulties on presenting here, just looking at the monitor, I apologize to those in the audience. I'll do my best to walk everyone through the slides so that you can all follow along with us. One thing that I will emphasize before I jump into my formal presentation is as part of updating the zoning code, if you all remember the general plan update process, that has a state statute associated with it that requires a public participation plan be included and be adopted by council. When we update a zoning code, that same requirement does not exist. However, I will commend the town staff in identifying to make this update process as transparent, as informative as possible. Staff requested that we develop this public participation plan and bring it through this process. So I just want to share that up front, that I think it's great to be clear and consistent up front about how we're going to approach involving the public in this process. So before we jump in, I want to give a little bit of a foundation to discuss the zoning code update effort first. So I'll give a little synopsis of just what goes into that so that we have a common understanding before we jump into how are we going to then engage the public in the process. So for the first, all right, we got the screen up for everyone to see. So why update the zoning ordinance? Well, a few things that you see on the slide that we like to emphasize. That one, we just went through the general plan update process. So making sure the zoning code is consistent with the policies in that plan is important. As we know, our state and federal laws change from time to time. I will say the town does or has done a good job of staying current with a lot of the rules and regulations that the town must follow. But as those are adopted over time and how those laws relate to all aspects of the zoning code, it's good to get in and see how things are interconnected and see if things can be improved to align comprehensively with those state and federal laws. In those efforts, when we update or when the town goes through periodic updates of the zoning code, often you're focused on correcting or addressing one particular issue, and how that edit might affect other parts of the zoning code aren't necessarily all accounted for at that time that a particular text amendment is made. So what this update does is allow us to take another look at some of the procedures or conditions that are in the code that might be absent or contradict something, and update those. The last I would just point out is, of course, it's good practice. It's good practice to get into your zoning code and continuously update it. It needs and wants to be aligned with development practices and modern procedures, whether that be a new use type or tools that we can use to guide growth and development in the town. So with an understanding of why the code is being updated, we'd like to talk a little bit about our approach and how will this update occur. And in one word, what we like to emphasize is balance. And you see on the screen there a couple competing aspects, right? Being predictable yet flexible, looking at preservation as well as acknowledging development. Not wanting to under-regulate something that needs that additional support, but not being too heavy-handed and over-regulate things. Of course, we want to be sensitive to development costs, but we have expectations on quality in the town. And then implementation, just how do we administer the code and what are the administrative costs of that? And so the little graphic you see on the screen is kind of that dynamic that we often see, is existing development or neighborhood protection versus new development in the town. And that balance that occurs is often with existing development, they want predictability, they want community participation, and they want that stability. And on the development side, it's needing some flexibility, wanting that efficient review process, and then making sure the code recognizes those modern aspects that are present in either the development community or the technology that exists today. What I would say to that balance is this is where the public and everyone in the audience and where council comes in, that's where this process is going to gain that balance, is by having a public outreach process that helps us calibrate and consider things to find out what is that equilibrium and best fit for the town. So we really like to emphasize that, because zoning code is technical work. It's different than when we were working on drafting the general plan, which is a lot about what do we see ourselves and how do we see getting there. The zoning code is much more nuanced, and so in that aspect, residents are here to help us calibrate, but maybe not so much draft content as we did through the general plan. And so what do I mean by that in terms of draft content? And so I just want to clarify before I jump into the outreach process is to show this graphic that conveys how this effort kind of comes together. And so where will our time be focused? The preliminary upfront phases are maybe similar to other projects we might work on, that of course we're having kickoff meetings and gathering information. We've already gone through a lot of those steps with staff. But now that we have the information we need, we will be going through a more robust code analysis. So what that analysis does is it's a full report that we go through the zoning code and identify deficiencies, almost similar to the audit summary that you just received. We go do an audit of the zoning code as well and identify any particular deficiencies that we recommend. With the benefit of that code analysis, we then generate a code outline or an annotated outline. And what that annotated outline is a glorified, really, table of contents. Because one of the things we look at when updating a zoning code is how user-friendly it is. And making a code user-friendly has impact on how the code is organized. How are parts of the code, where do they live, how are they referenced? All those items need to be considered up front in order for that table of contents to be identified, because then when we're drafting code language, we're referencing it to the proper sections, and the more cross-references we can infuse into the zoning ordinance, the more user-friendly it is. So if we were to start making edits and then at the end rearrange the code, now everything's, all the links and everything that we've put all that energy into is broken. And so we like to do this annotated outline up front where we explain this is what's going to go in this section and this is what's going to go in this chapter, and have that foundation, because then when we draft everything, it can start slipping into all of its proper homes. Once we go from there, that's where we get into the meat and potatoes of actually drafting the code. And what I like to emphasize also is that this is going to be surgical. We're not throwing out everything in the code and rewriting the whole thing. We're getting in there and only touching parts that need to be touched. Those are parts that don't align with state statute. Those are parts based off our code analysis that doesn't champion or support a policy or a goal that is listed in the general plan. And then, of course, it's going to align with coordinating with staff and ultimately the public about things they see in the community that, and then we will align that with the proper parts of the zoning code. So we break that down into modules. We can't, or it's not a best practice to take down the zoning code all at once and then give it out to the public and say, okay, here's 200 pages of code, read through all of it and give us your comments. So the way we go about it is break it out into modules. The first module we look at typically is the zoning districts, because that drives a lot of other aspects. It's not that we're going to be changing zoning districts or changing development standards, but we look at them and say, is there anything that's not working? Is there something that residents constantly come through to the town and ask for clarification on? All of those things are things that we want to be improving on. But if there's development standards, of course, there's setbacks, there's heights that we all expect, we all are familiar with. Those aren't changing unless it's identified through this public process that it needs to be changed. Unless it's aligned or not aligned with a state law, and there's no need to revise it, then we're not going to be looking to tinker with it. Once we identify edits, there'll be track changes, so everyone will see what the existing code is and what that change is, so you'll see it in real time, what's crossed out, what's added. And then we go through a little test mapping process where we try to break the code. Okay, here's a new provision. What if we take example projects and we run them through that to see what might cause a conflict with this new language, to see if we have to revise it. So it's not just about drafting something and patting ourselves on the back and saying we did a great job and moving on. It's actually challenging what we prepare to make sure that it holds up when it's being used through the day-to-day activities of the town. Once we have that language in place, then we go to the advisory committee. So that's where I talk about it's a little different than the general plan. The general plan, we went out to the public and we asked, help us with the vision, and what do you cherish in the town, and what do you want to preserve, and what challenges we have. In this aspect, because it's technical, we get further faster if we draft along with our code analysis and the input we receive up front. We prepare draft language and then have the public and our advisory group respond to that. So the advisory group will be our sounding board. We can bounce potential responses to that group, and they'll be that first review group. Then we can adjust things based off their input and then bring that to PZ Council for work sessions, and as you can see, also to the community. So all of this is built around making sure that everyone is aware of the changes and has an opportunity to speak on those. Once we go through all those individual modules, we get module 1 done in the zoning districts, we move on to the next. Then at the end, we bring all the modules together to create the whole zoning code update, and that's where we go through the adoption process. So a lot to kind of walk through there, but it is important that I wanted all of us and the public, as well as decision makers, to recognize that this is a defined process. The public is built into it, but it is a little bit different than maybe what we have done in the past relative to some of our more long-range planning efforts. With that understanding behind us, I want to now jump into our public participation plan. The plan that I believe is in your staff packets, it's really focused around 4 key goals. And of course, you can see those on the slide, that goal 1 is about being accessible, being inclusive, transparent, and continuous. And so if we achieve those goals, we feel that it is the best recipe for success in terms of everybody being comfortable with how a decision was made and what the ultimate reason for those edits are, and moving it forward to hopefully a acceptable adoption process. So within that, those 4 key goals, you can see within the placeholder on the slide that we have a specific audience that we're reaching out to through this process. Yes, absolutely, residents are first and foremost up front, and whether that be a homeowner or a renter, but we also need to keep in consideration those landowners / developers. It's not that we're catering to any of those, but they have the same property rights as residents in the eyes of our state law. And so we have to be mindful about all of that and balance it. We have great businesses in town, and we need to make sure that what we're proposing, if it has any impacts on our businesses, that we acknowledge from their perspective what would be a beneficial or change or a challenging change. And so, of course, having line of sight with their opinions is important. Coordinating with HOAs and neighborhood associations. Sometimes residents can't join these, and so these public meetings, I should say. And so like other efforts, we're going to continue to coordinate with our HOAs to the extent they have any challenges that they've seen over the process or over the years in terms of development that's happened in their neighborhoods. And sometimes it's kind of geographically specific, and other times it's holistic across the town. Community organizations, any of those nonprofits, for example, that are active in the community, or that have specific land holdings in the community are going to have a seat at the table. And we always align with our regional agencies and utilities. Sometimes their needs, whether it be a particular roadway or an adjacent community, we want to understand how they're approaching things so that when we propose code language, that it takes those decision-making aspects into account. So the next few slides are going to walk council through how we will engage with the public. And so within the first aspect, it's about how we're going to inform the public. How will we get information out? We will have a project website on the town's existing website. We will utilize the town's e-notification system. It's a very robust list, and so it's a great resource to make sure residents are aware when meetings will be held or draft materials available. We'll continue to make announcements like was shared at the beginning of this council meeting relative to the advisory group. We'll push out press releases. We'll provide print materials around the town center and or other businesses. Of course, any social media accounts that the town has, we'll post on those, and our pop-ups at the post office or other locations. We're trying to meet residents where they are, and those pop-ups work really well, whether it be a weekend event now that we're still in our winter or spring months. But as we get into summer, we may look at other opportunities when the weather is a little warmer about making sure we keep residents informed. Now, how are we going to consult residents or participants? And that means how are we going to hear from them? And one of the ways will be surveys. Surveys will be a little bit more strategic in this aspect. They will be deployed when necessary to gain consensus and or feedback on a particular issue. They won't be necessarily comprehensive like the general plan surveys because, again, we want to be very surgical in our edits here. This is not a comprehensive rewrite of the zoning code. It's just to get in and improve things where they need to be improved. But then work sessions, even though those are necessarily to the Planning Commission or the council, and the public doesn't always speak at those can be an opportunity for another avenue for consultation with the public. But the last part in terms of involving the public, of course, as the mayor noted at the beginning of our meeting this evening, we will have a zoning ordinance stakeholder group. That group will meet I believe it's 8 or 9 times during the overall process. And like you can imagine, that group, like any other advisory groups, is there to help us get a little deeper into the code than we could do at a community workshop, and get a little bit more finer grained feedback. But with the benefit of that information, we then will go to community workshops to share information. We'll schedule small group meetings if need be. If the chamber or others need us to present, we'll go do those to keep everyone informed. And then, of course, as I mentioned, we have our Planning and Zoning Commission and Town Council meetings to also utilize for outreach purposes. All of that, I like to close on this project timeline, but this graphic, it's a graphic that kind of plays off of our mountains in our backdrop here, but it's also visual in the sense of trying to show everyone here in terms of the key phases of the process, whether it be the diagnose, the outline, or then when we get into the draft and delivery, where the bulk of the effort goes in time. So you can see that the diagnose and outline time frame, of course, there's work involved. We are diligent, and so there's a time frame there. But the biggest part of the effort, no surprise, is that the drafting of the code language is the greatest amount of time and the greatest amount of work within the overall process. And then the deliver phase is the closing. And so with that, I will, of course, acknowledge that Stacy is the point of contact on this particular effort. If you have any upfront needs relative to this project, you can reach out to Stacy. But from there, Mayor, I'll turn it back over to you with questions.
Okay, Matt, thank you. Very comprehensive and good job. So when would you expect to kick it off? I mean, we have this zoning advisory committee coming together probably in March, I suspect.
Thank you. Yes, we're looking to close that invitation period at the end of February, basically. Then once that group is in place, that will, we're already working in the background in terms of our diagnosis and looking at the background material that staff provided. With the progression of the public participation plan this evening, that will allow us to get the project website up on the town's existing website. And then, as you noted, in March is where you'll start to see more public-facing aspects of the project.
Okay. And one thing I would really look to, and I'm sure you'll do this because you do this process in other communities and even at the county, is to help learn from what they've done without inventing things. Because there's a couple of issues that have come before the town council in the last 6 months, signage, and then removing some of our ability to decide things and making it administrative rather than legislative. And I think that's anything we can do to control both of those things, and learning from other municipalities' experiences will be very good.
I'm glad you shared that, Mayor. I think that is one of the key parts of updating a zoning code is there's some comfort in having some mileage on how code language has been used. And so whereas a general plan, you might or do have a lot of original content, in zoning codes, it is very common to look at peer communities and see how do they address hillside development, how do they address resorts, whatever the case may be that's similar to what we experience here in Carefree. We would absolutely want to bring forward those examples because I think in our experience it gives decision makers and the public a little bit of comfort knowing that something's been out in the public, it's kind of been vetted in terms of being used and possibly even refined to the point where it becomes commonplace. And so yes, we will be, I am proud of the resume that we have. We have assisted the county with their zoning code update, but we have and are assisting other communities that are similar to Carefree, i.e. Paradise Valley with their zoning code updates. And so I think there's a lot of synergy that we can pull into that. So thank you for that comment, Mayor.
And when you spoke at the P&Z meeting, you talked about the county, and you talked about a tool that the county used to gather public input called Conveo or something like that.
Yes.
So will you use that, or will you use something else, or talk to that?
I commend you for using planner terminology, Mayor, in Conveo. It is a newer public outreach program that we are really excited to utilize because if any of you in your line of work have received a PDF and been asked, please provide your comments on this PDF. You might get that PDF after someone else looks at it and you see their comments in it and then you put your comments in it and everybody is individually putting their comments in. Conveo is a wonderful tool in that it allows us to upload, in essence, a PDF. And then that platform allows everyone to comment on the same document. So this is live right now in terms of if you just wanted to see how it works. We're working with Maricopa County on their comprehensive plan, and it's using the same program. But what's great about it is it's very user-friendly. You just pull up the Conveo. It's just like anything else. You click on a button, Conveo comes up, and you literally just scroll through the document like any PDF. And when you see something you want to comment, you just click on the screen. Comment box pops up. You share your comment, and then that comment is viewable to anybody else in the community, and they can upvote that, they can downvote your comment, or they can pile on your comment. And so it really becomes a communication, a two-way communication instead of a one-way communication. And it gets the public involved into the conversation and somewhat, takes the consultant out of it and lets the public go through that conversation. If anyone's thinking, yes, there's controls in terms of making sure everyone uses proper language and that you do there's no registration, but you do put your name in. So there are a few little things that are controls to make sure that everyone behaves. But it's a wonderful tool that we would love to include in this process because of how interactive it is.
Okay, great. So we can look forward to that.
Yes.
Can I ask a quick question about that? So this is you're commenting on the material, but you're not editing it. So it's not like a Google Sheet. It is.
Yeah, great, council member. What we like about this tool and where it comes into play even more so in a zoning code is in a general plan, when we've got comments, you might often get a comment saying, I don't like when the plan uses this word. And then you're left kind of searching for where that word is to figure out where are they commenting on it in the plan. In a zoning code, it's even more difficult because sometimes you might just get, I don't like this number, and you're not even sure what number, what table they're referencing if they didn't reference it correctly when they gave you the feedback. So this is nice in that when they scroll through it, you click on the exact part of the document and a bubble pops up, and that bubble stays there for the next person that comes in, and they'll see that bubble and they'll say, oh, I wonder what someone had to say on this table, and they can they could click a button and look through all comments, so they don't even have to wait to see what page something is on. So yes, in real time, with the exception of there might be a delay for the quality control process. The vendor that we utilized has a built-in one, and then we make a decision if we want to review all comments before they're uploaded or if we accept the vendor's kind of tool. So there's still a little decision-making we have to do before that would be utilized, but absolutely you get to see it in real time in the exact spot that the comment relates to.
So if, for example, somebody put in a comment that wanted to change something that was against state law, then you most likely would be QCing that and maybe make a comment that this is not.
Correct.
Okay.
So we would download once the comment period is closed, we would download all the comments, evaluate what can and can't be addressed, and then in a public meeting or setting, we would explain what was accepted and what wasn't and why.
But during the QC process, you were saying you may have the ability to say that we're not going to allow that comment to be added?
We can go about, I apologize for that nuance, I see where you're going. In terms of if someone makes a comment but it's not consistent with state law or federal law, we can wait till the comment period closes and then have that conversation. But we also, as the administrator of the tool, can even go in and make a comment saying, unfortunately, state law prevents us from doing this. And so if we see that, a lot of people are kind of upvoting this and we can't do it, we might want to jump in and tap that, or clarify that, I should say, then wait for it to kind of continue to gain traction. So good comment.
Yeah,
I see
it's really good, because you want to nip that in the bud. You don't want participants going down a path which is impossible.
Yes. No, I think that nuance is one that we can absolutely work within. Good feedback.
Okay, other questions and comments?
Yeah, I've one, two. So on your timeline, you're saying it's gonna take 8 months to phase 3, 8 months, 4 to 12?
It's, so that timeline, one of the things that we will have to be diligent on in the zoning code and why that range is so large is when you get into the zoning code process, one of the things that often occurs is the what if game. And code language will be drafted, and then we will continue to get inquiries about, well, what if this happens? What if that happens? And that's where you start going closer to 12 than 4. So if we can be focused in our efforts and surgical in our edits, we can be on the 4-month time frame. But we like to be, again, transparent that if we really start to debate things, and it's happened in other communities on particular issues, then you start to drag out the process, and it does kind of erode the efficiency of the effort overall. So
Yeah, 'cause-
it's not to say that we're shooting for that 12, but that's where that estimated timeline comes
Yeah,
in.
because it looks like you're saying March 2027 to July 2027
Right.
before any of this is implemented, correct?
So
Are your
we would prefer to keep this, and we're already starting on our work effort, but 12-month total time frame for a zoning code update is extremely efficient, but is really our recommendation in terms of trying to stay within that time frame. And that's where the conversation can come in of, let's implement aspects of the code, and if it doesn't work, then you come back in and you refine things. If we continue to try and refine it up front, we'll never get to a final code. So the 12-month time frame is the total timeline of the project.
So if it started next month,
We've
nothing
already
would be-
started our analysis because
but you're
we,
saying, so 12 months, so March
So-
2027.
so we're already
before
2
it's
months
voted
into this
in.
process.
Yeah, but that still means, even if you're 2 weeks, we're still in 2027, March.
Sure,
Yeah.
but yes, it's a big code and a lot to do.
Yeah, that's, I'm just trying to get a handle on when it would be
I see.
implemented.
Gotcha.
So, because that has to be voted on and then implemented.
Yes, and there's a few.
I would also think that if you do in Paradise Valley, you've got all these others that have already done it, I would just, you can parrot a lot of what you've already done. It seems like that would be the path to go down.
And I mean, every community is unique, so that's, you're spot on, though, that we would issue we would come in, here's how a few other communities approach it. And if we like kind of what we see, then it's great. We'll work with that, we'll fine tune it, move on. But yes, if it turns into, we won't name names, but one community had a challenge with parking in the front yard. And they really wanted to dig into that, and we ended up with an 8-page regulation of parking in the front yard. You can maybe guess if that ever ended up getting approved. It did not. But that's the example of when you start playing that what-if game and trying to plug every hole. So to your point, council member, when we can pull things that kind of have a track record, there's a comfort level there.
I would think you'd be able to stop going down a rabbit hole if you've already been there.
Yes.
That's kind of where I'm going.
Yeah, yep. We would concur with you there.
Okay, any other comments, questions? Okay, great, Beth. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
So now our action is to accept the public participation plan. So I would accept a motion to accept the public participation plan for the Town of Carefree zoning code update. Anyone wish to make a motion? Just read it right here. Accept the
I make a motion to accept the public participation plan for the Town of Carefree zoning code update as presented by Matt Kleisico of Michael Baker International.
Second.
Okay, any comments? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, passed unanimously. Thank you, Matt.
And all of our screens
Okay, what happened? Okay, that was a technical problem here up here. All the screens on there just vanished. Okay, item number 9. Call to the public. Those wishing to address the council need not request permission in advance. The public may address the council on matters not on the agenda. At the conclusion of an open call to the public, individual members of the public body may respond to criticism made by those who have addressed the public body, may ask staff to review a matter, direct staff to study the matter, reschedule the matter for further consideration and decision at a later date, or may ask that a matter be put on a future agenda. However, the council may not discuss or take legal action at this time. Please limit your comments to no more than 3 minutes. So I have a few slips here. First up, John Trainer. Top of the pile.
Life vote.
John Trainer, 25-year Carefree resident. Good evening, Mayor Crane, members of the council, residents here, residents at home. Last month, I raised several relevant questions during the agenda item. While I respected the council's protocol regarding immediate responses, I'm disappointed that none of the parties involved have followed up with me since. However, immediately following the meeting, I was approached by the Economic Development Director, Steve Propitek, regarding the northeast corner. I will not recount the details of his answers here, but I believe they would be contested, he said, she said scenario without a witness to that conversation, though I am certain Carefree voters will find those answers enlightening and disappointing. Most distressingly, I asked why the town chose to file criminal charges against 6 businesses or property owners instead of issuing simple notices and reasonable fines. Again, Mr. Propitek claimed he authorized this action under power granted by the council through the Village Center redevelopment plan. I am formally requesting a copy of the specific section of that plan that authorizes his office to initiate criminal proceedings, which are in sharp contrast to the concept of economic development. I look forward to the rationalization for these criminal charges and answers to my previous questions. And one final thing I scribbled here earlier: has the town curtailed the egregious process of criminalizing minor code infractions? Thank you.
Ms. Delicio.
Feels so good standing on this side for once. Vincenzo Delizio, 36865 North Bloody Basin Road. Mayor Crane, Vice Mayor Croyer, members of council, staff, Mr. Fitzgibbons, current and former members of planning and zoning, so included you, Ralph, and residents, Carefree neighbors. I met, and I'm here to honor Gary Neese. I met Gary Neese nearly 10 years ago when I approached he and then Mayor Les Peterson about volunteering for events in town. Gary sold me on civic duty through projects that mayor and council members were promoting at the time, such as Christmas, Hanukkah, Italian festivals, Kiwanis breakfast, and the list goes on. I met someone who was not only an employee, but someone who cared about the town and residents, no matter how busy, would take time to sit down with you and go out of his way to talk about town history, people, things that have worked in the past, and things that didn't, and why. Throughout my 3 terms on town council, I leaned on Gary repeatedly for input and feedback. Gary was instrumental in projects of sustainability, such as the infrastructure with water. Coming back from Las Vegas recently and making that drive over Lake Mead and how shallow it is and how the drought affects the desert foothills and how we proactively took measures to protect it, thanks in large part to Gary's meticulous fact-finding and presentations. Fire protection, Gary's unbiased input on the pros and cons of automatic versus mutual aid and the renegotiation and critical public services were instrumental in our education throughout that process. Economic development and keeping us in the black during the pandemic when people weren't shopping in our stores. Gary's tightening of the belt to ensure we would survive. Gary also provided key input when I was president of the Cave Creek Museum during that same pandemic, as we were closed the entire time and still had overhead to maintain. Because of that insight, the museum is thriving now better than ever and serves as the historical repository for all of the desert foothills. Gary's insight was critical when I proposed and Mayor Peterson approved the proclamation to honor town pioneer Gary Jones, renaming the Sundial Circle in Mr. Jones's honor. And also having been part of consultation on Gary's contract negotiations with the town 8 years ago, to keep him in Carefree when he was Paradise Valley's top candidate for the town manager vacancy there 8 years ago. He could have been greedy, but he stayed here for far less than he easily could have commanded elsewhere, and I can attest to that fact. I've seen the numbers. Having spent half my adult life as a football coach, at many levels, in working with professional athletes and coaches, the common mantra is, you don't follow a legend, you guys on council have a big job ahead of you in replacing this gentleman here. And Gary Neese is what's great about our town. Gary's going to be missed, but he'll always be my friend and a friend of the town of Carefree. And Councilman Mike Johnson would be standing right here next to me. He senses regrets that he couldn't be here. So thank you, Gary.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Les Peterson.
Thank you, Mayor Crane. Yes? Okay. Thank you, Mayor Crane and council members. I'm here, like Councilman Delicio, to honor Gary. I spent a good deal of time working with Gary. My first association with the town was in 2008 when I was president of the Boulders Homeowners Association. We worked carefully. We worked thoroughly with the town, and Gary was in place at that point in time on the removal of a wastewater treatment plant in the center of the Boulders. I worked with him when I was on planning and zoning in 2014, was vice mayor in 2015, and 4 terms as mayor, ending in December of 2022. Gary has been, quite candidly, a mentor of mine. He taught me a lot, because here I am a year on council, and all of a sudden one is the mayor. There is a lot one does not know. And there's a fountain of facts, there's a fountain of perspective, of context, of what are we trying to do here. Gary was the chief operating officer of the town by virtue of his position, but he heavily influenced the strategy of the town by presenting the facts and putting it out in a cogent and cohesive manner. There are a number of things that I could talk for a long time about what these projects were, but let me just talk about a couple of these. I mentioned briefly the removal of the wastewater treatment plant in the Boulders. That was a huge problem. That took 10 years, from 2008 until it was removed in 2018. That required constant contact with the Corporation Commission, with the Superior Court, with the Appellate Court, two transits, if you will, to the Supreme Court in Arizona, and we finally had an 8-part settlement on that. Gary was very instrumental in that. The removal, the consolidation of Carefree water accounts. The 30% on the southwest corner of Carefree residents and businesses, what we call the northeast corner, would be facing shortages. I feel very confident within the next few years, given the water situation. Carefree is in a much more advantageous situation. We needed, we demanded, we secured those accounts into the Carefree water system. Additional water storage reservoirs. Carefree's water, over half of it comes through the CAP, Central Arizona Project Canal, 15 miles away through South Scottsdale, through 4 to 8-inch pipes. We don't have enough water up here to fight 300,000 gallons for a major fire in a home. We need forward reservoirs. That was a major battle. Gary was instrumental in that.
Please, I'm sorry, but you have to just wrap it up.
I'll wrap it up.
Thanks.
I could go on for another half an hour on projects that Gary has done, but I want to thank you for your contributions to Carefree and its residents, and I want to give best wishes to you and your family for the future and the next chapter in your life. Thank you for all you have done for all of us.
Okay, very good. Les Hardy.
Mr. Mayor and council members, 3 Sundays ago we had a little event here in town around the sundial and the desert cactus garden. We had an unusual little car show called Orphans and Oddballs, and I actually asked Alexa, are there any other oddballs and orphan shows in Arizona? It turns out there's one orphan show
in addition to ours, and no oddball shows in Arizona. So we put on something that was unusual, it was fun, it was odd. We managed to advertise our town because we put one of these advertising brochures in all of the goodie bags. Everybody who came with a car got a bag full of odds and ends, but they learned about Carefree. So our expectation is that we may be able to do this in the future. Councilmember Johnson, Councilmember Miller, and I were sort of the spark plugs of this, but we got a lot of help from Travis, from Madison, from Debbie, and always the town of Carefree is does whatever is necessary to help us out on these kinds of events. So again, thank you all for participating, for coming. We hope to keep doing it in the future. This town is kind of quirky. We have names like Ho Hum Street, so why not have a car show with oddballs? It sort of all goes together. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you. So that closes call to the public. We entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you all for coming. Good meeting.